I've been reading this book, Winning the War in Your Mind by Craig Groeschel, and it's really helped me a lot. I'm glad I had the insight to see that this is what I needed to be reading. In chapter 8, he talks about unanswered prayer, and he says sometimes we need to thank God for what he didn't do. Developing that discipline helps us reframe our past. Well, I don't really have a prayer that wasn't answered, but for a long time I did have regret because in 1980 I went to Hollywood and I had for my whole life wanted to be um, in the entertainment industry from the time I watched the Ed Sullivan Show and saw Diana Ross and the Supremes and all the other Motown celebrities. I just thought they were so fantastic. I was glued to the show every time it came onto the air. And I think that's what I'm going to do when I grow up. I'm going to Hollywood. So I did make it there, and I did meet Gene Page, who was an influential music arranger. And I didn't know it at the time, but he is the guy who created the Wall of Sound for Phil Spector and created the Motown sound for Motown. And all of those people who were with Motown, whether it was the Jacksons, Marvin Gaye, um, Diana Ross and the Supremes, Stevie Wonder, he knew them all before they were famous. So to him, they were like the kids next door. And I didn't know anything about this because we didn't have the internet in those days. And he never really discussed his career. He was always very supportive of me and watching out for me. He was the father I never had. I had a father who was extremely narcissistic and abusive, and Gene just melted me. What a kind and wonderful man. And one day I was in his office and he said, "Have you ever heard of a singer named Michael Jackson?" And I go, "Yes, of course." And he says, "Something about you just reminds me of him. He's quiet like you are, he's 20 like you are, and something about you just reminds me of him. I'm dying to set you two up. I think you'd get along great." And I thought he was joking or he was mentally ill because no one knew Michael Jackson and no one is going to introduce me to him. So I didn't say too much. I was kind of processing that. And later on, I found out he was spending the particular evening with Jermaine Jackson working on his latest album. So he actually did know the Jacksons for about 12 years before he suggested I meet him. And I didn't press it because I felt like I wasn't good enough. And I felt like Michael would humiliate me and reject me and devastate me because he was Michael Jackson. He was too good for me. And this is what this book is about changing your thinking so you don't defeat yourself. And I did have a friend that was in TV production in his younger years. And when I told him that story, his eyes opened so wide. He said, "Can you imagine?" And I said, "It probably would have been huge." Although I did read somewhere that he told women he was married to his career, so he couldn't have serious relationship at that point when he was 20. But soon after Gene said that, I came back home. And one reason is because most of the men in Hollywood were creepy. Everything Cheryl Hines says about Hollywood, I experienced as well. And I felt kind of like I was in over my head. I wasn't really ready to for the big time, and that's kind of where I was because of my association with Barry White's road manager, and it just scared me. I was afraid up there. I came home and went to San Diego State because I felt safe there, and I didn't feel safe in Hollywood. But over the years, as Michael's star rose higher and higher in the sky, and he had the Thriller album, he did the halftime show, I saw all of this, and I thought, wow, what a difference my life would have been if I had stayed in Hollywood and met him. Who knows? Because I've been told I'm musical. I love the creative part that he did, showing Oprah how he danced and all that. I would have loved to seen that. I love being in the studio when I am with children, and I was a Sunday school teacher for 20 years. I sit on the floor and play with them, and that's exactly what he is pictured doing. And the animals. I love the animals. So it might have been something really nice. But over the years, seeing what happened to him, I had a year-old son. And if Michael was accused of molesting boys, maybe the parents of the kids my son went to school with wouldn't have allowed him to play because they thought he was under the influence of a child molester. And I never believed that Michael molested any kids because Gene was the most intuitive person I've ever met. And he could just look at you and tell you what you were meant for. And he did it for Cher, a young 16-year-old girl. He gave her her first singing job in the business. He did it for Barry White. He recognized his talent. And I think if there was anything nefarious about Michael, there's no way in hell Gene would have recommended that I meet him. And he was truly one of the sweetest and kindest people I've ever known. And he looked out for me big time. That'll be another video, but he really captured my heart with his just loving heart, and he was a great person. So he just wouldn't have done it. And look at what Lisa Marie ended up going through. I mean, when she came out, started telling the things that Michael did to her, she didn't want to have his children, so he kind of dumped her and went and married someone else and had him. I don't think that's very ceremonious. I think that I would have gone through a lot and probably been mentally destroyed because we weren't really on an even balance of power. Lisa Marie was famous and wealthy in her own right, but I would have kind of been dependent on him. And I think it would have been a really rough road. In Jermaine's book, Through a Brother's Eyes, he talks about how he introduced Michael to the members of the Nation of Islam, and the next thing he knows, they wouldn't let Jermaine into Michael's house. and surrounded the place so that Joe, their father, tried to drive his truck through the gates of Neverland to rescue Michael. Now, I would have gone through all of that, and seeing him die, uh, apparently he was seriously addicted to drugs like Demerol and was getting Demerol shots all the time. And his autopsy allegedly said he had needle pricks all over his body from all the shots he was getting. It was that time when he had his hair get set on fire that ruined his scalp, and he was in constant pain and just got more and more addicted until he was using propofol. There was a guy who was going through paramedic training, EMT, and he said that picture of Michael's bedroom where he died looks just like a crime scene. So who knows what I would have been through, what I would have gone through. But another thing that really strikes me is watching Paris Jackson, because if things had gone another way, she could have been my daughter. And she's 6 years sober. She has a piece of plastic in her nose to hold her nostril open. She's very spacey and acts traumatized, and God bless her for surviving. But my daughter's never been on drugs. My daughter is a 911 dispatcher for a major city. So, and the little boy I had is an engineering supervisor. They both have done really well. They weren't damaged by scandal. If something had happened and I had married into the celebrity life up in LA, my kids might be on drugs and have the celebrity kid lifestyle of Nick Reiner and Cher's son Elijah. So, in the end, I think things did work out for the best. Instead of having my whole life devastated, I was watching the story from afar, you know? And truthfully, I think Lisa Marie took a bullet for me. I'll say, she went through a lot. And even look what happened to her after her relationship with him. Her son killed himself, and she was found dead on her bedroom floor. I mean, that could have been me. So I live in a very humble home. I live in a mobile home in Escondido, California, but I feel blessed that God protects me and that I should put him first in my thinking to get over my feelings of depression and sadness. And if you have a story about an unanswered prayer, I hope you'll let us know about it. And thank you for listening.